Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar event, Purpose-Driven Time Management. Your Coggno moderators today are Pia Bernardo, Coggno's training consultant, and myself, Kat Amato, the marketing director at Coggno. If you have any questions or need any training needs that we might be able to help you with, please note our emails and phone numbers and feel free to contact either Pia or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you. As a thank you for attending today's webinar, we're offering everyone an exclusive 30% discount off of any of the courses that we have available from Chrysalis Consulting within our marketplace. Simply use the coupon code TIME-30 as shown on the slide here at checkout, and we encourage you to use this coupon within this week to take advantage of the coupon. Before we begin today's webinar, I would like to take a moment to thank our partner community who have invited their members and clients to attend today's event. Partners with many different business segments to provide online training courses directly from their website so their members and clients have a convenient place to purchase the training they need. If you're not a Coggno partner, email me today at info@coggno.com and I'll be happy to provide you some information on how to sign up. It's easy and completely free of charge and a great way to earn extra revenue for your company. In addition to Chrysalis Consulting's related courses, we also have thousands of courses in virtually every business topic available in our marketplace, including human resources, software, business management, and soft skills training, to name just a few of the many topics available. So be sure to check out our website to search the various options. Now today we are very proud to have with us Kelly Fryer. Kelly is the founder and director of Chrysalis Consulting, an organizational development consultancy based in the UK with clients across the globe. Kelly started the company in 2013 after leaving her position as HR director. And Kelly is passionate about developing people and recognizes that businesses that invest in their people outperform those that don't. Having worked with a high number of Times Top 100 and IAP accredited businesses, she knows the true benefit of creating a talented workforce. Kelly is a qualified and accredited coach and psychotherapist and starts a PhD in March 2016 in organizational with the Asridge Business School to add to her existing qualification in psychology and a wealth of HR, L&D, and OD. So it is with great pleasure that we welcome Kelly from Chrysalis Consulting today. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, Kat. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Kat, for that great introduction. And thanks to everybody attending the session today. I hope you get a lot out of the next hour or so as we go through. I'll just quickly highlight before I kind of go into too much of the detail really that we will be running a couple of pop quizzes throughout the session today. There will be plenty of time then at the end of the webinar today for any questions that you may have. And if time allows, although we do have quite a lot of content to go through, I'll run you through a couple of exercises, although you will be able to find those in the course at the end. So very, very quick agenda of what we'll cover today. So I'll give you a little bit of background about myself and the business. I will introduce you to, I suppose, a very different way of thinking really about time is not money. I'll then go through with you the elements of purpose-driven time management. We'll then cover some learning, as I said, if we've got time to kind of go through the exercises, and then we'll finish with any final thoughts and questions. So if you do think of anything, either as we're going through or at the end of today's session, then please feel free to pop any comments or questions that you may have in the chat box, and we'll try and get those answered for you. So a little bit about me. I think in terms of really where I sort of started my career, so as Kat mentioned, sort of 18 years really in terms of HR experience and L&D experience. And it was extremely lucky to have been able to work with the companies that I worked at really, and was able to gain 7 promotions over an 8-year period, which allowed me to be the youngest HR director in the UK. And I've always been extremely visionary, which in part I think is why I'm now at the point of having 2 companies, one of which is Chrysalis Consulting. And really what we do within Chrysalis, again, as Kat mentioned, with the OD work that we do, but very much kind of changing the way that businesses develop their people, changing the way that businesses, I suppose, work with consultants, and the businesses that we work with on a one-to-one basis. It's very much about embedding ourselves in that business to enable them to grow and develop as they need to. I'm not huge at detail. I very much do the kind of big picture type of stuff, so detail is definitely not my forte, but I've got a fantastic team that I work with that are able to drive all of that forwards. Growing up came, I suppose, from a very different childhood, and I think that's really stood me in good stead for being able to work in a different way within the business, work in a different way really throughout all of my HR career, and actually we're always seen as the very different family. My mum was the main breadwinner in the house, and my dad stayed at home to bring up myself, my brother and my sister, which kind of back in the early 80s was something that was completely unknown, but I've always kind of had that, I suppose, the blue fish swimming among the goldfish, and not being afraid to kind of stand up and be a little bit different. Kat also mentioned a number of my qualifications. I left school actually at the age of 18. I didn't go to university. I couldn't decide at the time what it was that I wanted to do. Started a career with a large retailer on their management development program, and then went into HR from there. But at the time I made the decision that university wasn't right for me, but the qualifications, the training and the skills I've been able to develop really throughout my career have been things that I'm really passionate about, and things that I've been able to develop really to help me work better with my teams, work better with my employers, and now work much better with my clients. So I had my sons when I was sort of very young. I have twin sons who are now 15, they'll be 16 this December, so growing up very, very quickly. And motherhood is a really important part of everything that I do really, and I think when I was working as an HR director I was commuting into London every day, kind of out of the house for sort of 12-14 hours a day, and being able now to run my 2 companies but still being able to provide that quality time to my sons is absolutely massively important to me. When I do have time, I love cycling. I cycled across Kenya for some women's cancer charities quite a few years ago. But love when I can being able to get out on my bike, and my partner and I do some sort of charity cycles locally to us as well. In terms of Chrysalis, as we said, we really are all about inspiring passion, purpose and performance in teams, and we do that through process, performance and people development, which the whole team is extremely passionate about. I've got an amazing team that I work with. And I actually myself, because of the work that I love doing, so primarily for me it really is about the coaching, so whether it's executives, boards, the businesses or the individuals, the coaching and the content development really for the e-learning courses is where my passion lies. So I recruited a managing director into the business about 12 months ago now to really allow me to focus on what I love doing as opposed to getting involved with the day-to-day parts of the business. And time management is a huge I suppose something that I'm just really passionate about. And again, with working with some of the large companies that I worked at, I have been sat there previously waiting for sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes, one point waiting up to 45 minutes for a director to attend a meeting where we had a number of other employees available. And for me, I've got just something in me that I like to try and be early or on time for everything. I know my partner will say I take forever getting ready, but actually if there's any meetings, if there's appointments, it's all about being early or on time for everything. And I do that because I respect my time as much as I do everybody else's. And actually there's nothing to say that anybody's time really is more important than mine, and vice versa. So time management is something that as I said, I'm extremely passionate about, and if I can support businesses or individuals in getting better with that, then really that's where I want to kind of try and get to, and that's where this course, Purpose-Driven Time Management, came from. So before we move on too much further, I like to try and do this with any courses, with any webinars, with any sessions. If you can, and really for me it's probably the third point that's the most important, but if you can in the chat box, if you're able to do so, if you could pop your name, what it is that you do, but as I said, probably one of the most important is actually what it is that you want from today, because whenever I'm delivering any sort of information, I like to be able to make sure that I'm covering as many of those points as possible. So as we go through, if there is anything that you think of, please just let us know what it is that you want from today, or we can cover that off again in the questions as we go through. So thank you very much for that.
And just to let you know, the chat feature is on the right-hand side of your screen, the GoToMeeting panel at the bottom. So you can put that information in there, and also any questions that you might have throughout the webinar. If you wanted to put those into the chat feature as well, you can do so, and we'll have a Q&A after the presentation.
That's great. Thanks, Kat. So let's get started. And I get lots of pulled faces actually when I see this slide. Really lovely thought, isn't it? Kind of top 5 regrets of the dying. And this was a survey that was carried out a number of years ago now, really, from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. And these are the 5 things that really sort of came up as the top 5 regrets here. But what the detail of this survey went on to explain was that much of these 5 points, was due to time. So for many people, it was because they felt they hadn't had enough time to do any of this. They'd not created the time to make changes in their lives, or they got too busy at work, too busy with a variety of different things, not been able to stay in contact with their friends. They'd not created the time or the space to be able to allow themselves to be happier or express their feelings, and they had ploughed a lot of time into the work that they'd done. There was an interesting news story a few weeks ago, or an interesting interview with David Attenborough, who some of you may know as an amazing guy from the UK that's done some amazing stuff with kind of nature and the world in general, really. But they interviewed him and were talking to him about one of the top regrets for him, and he said the biggest regret actually was doing the amount of work that he'd done and not spending enough time with his children. So this is something that comes up quite regularly. The other part of the survey was people thinking actually that they had all of the time in the world. So whilst they were busy today, they were ploughing everything into their careers, or they were planning everything in, to various different parts of their lives. They never thought they'd get to the point where time would run out for them. I can always do it tomorrow, I can always do it tomorrow. And as part of the presentation that we'll go through today, part of the actual training of this, is really being able to start to create the time now. So by understanding your purpose, which is where the purpose-driven time management comes from, you make sure that you're creating the time for the right things that you need to be doing. So then we move on, and this is, again, some people, whenever I sort of show them this, start twitching in their seats, getting very, very uncomfortable. Because actually, for the majority of us, actually what we get taught is, whether we're in employment or whether we're running our own businesses, of course time is money. And this campaign here that came from Citibank, I just thought was absolutely great. So the phrase time is money is an insult to time. And as I said, I have 2 companies, but actually we don't sell time for money. What we sell is outcomes. So the work that we provide, the support that we provide to businesses, any material that it is that we produce, e-learning courses such as this one, or wealth of other courses that we work and sell, it's about the outcomes. It's not working for an hourly rate. And I think a lot of us can get stuck into, we focus on what we've wasted money on. And I've been there myself. You go to the cinema, or maybe, I don't know, to the theatre, you do something that you paid money for, and you sit there, and the start of the film, for example, starts off really, really bad, but you sit there thinking it's going to get much, much better. You sit there until the end, and it hadn't got any better throughout of it. But what the majority of people, certainly I was in this boat, and a number of other people that I know, what an absolute waste of money I just paid to watch that film. We never really capture that we've wasted, an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours of our time on something that actually we can't get back. And with time, it's not something that we can get more of. We can earn more money, we can lose money, and we can re-earn that money. We can, give money away, we can get money back. Money is money, and we can always get more of it, but actually we can never get more time. Even the time that you're spending on this session today, you're never going to get that time back. So, as part of what I do, I want to make sure, and again, that's why I sort of ask the questions, what is it that you want to get out of it? Because actually, if you're giving me an hour of your time, I need to make sure that I'm giving you some quality or some value in return. And if we sit focused too much on kind of hourly rates or selling time for money, for me, that just feels like the wrong ethos. And again, I think if you're in business, or if you have your own business, focus much more on the value and what you place, the financial value that you place on the outcomes, as opposed to how long it's taking you to deliver something. So that's kind of just, I suppose, one of the big points that I want to share with you there. So let's then start to look at time management and what it is, and you'll see the definition on the screen here. So it's described as the ability to use one's time effectively or productively, and it focuses here especially at work. But although we spend a large majority of our time at work, we've also got time that we spend with family and friends, and it's about making the best use of that as well. And time management is the key to efficient working, but I would also extend on that and say that time management is the key to efficient living. And if we can get all of our time management sorted out, there's huge benefits for us in all areas of our life. I also want to point out here that busy is not the same as being productive. And I don't know what it's like within your workplaces, but certainly when I speak to people, when I was employed, you'd maybe walk past somebody, how are you today? And the response would immediately be, I'm busy. And that seemed to start to become a really acceptable response. Busy seemed to be an acceptable response. Actually, busy in some respects is obviously we get pressures of things that are placed upon us. We've got work, we've got responsibilities that we need to focus on. But busy is not the same as being productive. And go back to what I said about my business, we sell outcomes as opposed to time. I would really, really love to see a time, and I know some businesses are really, really starting to move towards this, but where we actually pay our employees for the outcomes that they produce as opposed to the hours that they're sat at their desk. So I'll leave that thought with you there. So without time management, what can happen to us? And it's important, obviously time management is extremely important, and the slide here shows what can happen when we don't have it. Sometimes though, we need a don't do list as opposed to a to do list. And we can also get what I call kind of bright, shiny object syndrome. So we're drawn to everything that crosses our emails, or we're drawn to everything we see on social media, we're drawn to the next training course, we're drawn to, various different things that kind of, oh yes, we need a bit more of that, and we need a bit more of that, and we need a bit more of that. And again, from the purpose-driven time management, if you're clear on your purpose and what it is that you're trying to achieve, you will then know where you should be spending your time, you'll know the sort of support that you need, and you will know the bright, shiny objects that you need to be drawn to, and the ones that you can just ignore. So as it says here, without time management, we can lack focus and drive. We can start to procrastinate because sometimes it just feels like the whole world is kind of landing on our desk or into our emails, and we don't know where to start to deal with those things. So we then start to procrastinate. We spend hours on, maybe looking on social media or doing tasks and activities that we really shouldn't be doing. We can start to feel really anxious. We can start to feel overworked, and again we go back into that busy scenario where we're constantly feeling busy, but again we're not being productive as we go through. And there can be this overwhelming feeling of there not being enough hours of the day, and again I know I've lived through that many times over actually, but sometimes we just feel if we had an extra hour or an extra couple of hours we would get everything done. And again I think that's where I draw you back to, sometimes we need this don't do list as opposed to the to-do list. But also without this time management, and this is where it can start to impact on individual and business performance, we can start to miss goals and deadlines. So I'd also probably like to add here, and I think going back to the kind of busy and this don't do list, I think sometimes it really, really helps if we can do task management as opposed to time management. So if we focus on the tasks that we've got to do and then chunk that down into time management, that also can make us much, much more productive. So we've looked at what can happen if we don't have time management, but why is time management important? Well, we live and work really in an age of technology. Everything is now urgent, and we can be contacted at all times of the day by a variety of forms. And again, I don't know about the places where you work, but sometimes, you know, we get chased still, not necessarily by our clients, but sometimes, you know, I don't know, somebody that we're doing some work with, I sent you an email 30 minutes ago, it was really, really urgent, you haven't come back to me. For me, if it's urgent, actually pick up the phone. If it's something urgent that needs to come through, then actually the way in which you give me the information also needs to be treated in an urgent manner. And if it is that important, don't do it by email contact. And again, I don't necessarily know how that sits with you, but again, for all of us, we can all become massively overwhelmed by the amount of emails and information that we get through. And sometimes it can, where do we start with it all? So as I said, we can be busy all of the time, often head down staring at our computers or phones and trying to juggle the numerous emails in our inbox and the constant calls. And again, coming back to this, there aren't enough hours in the day, they're becoming words really that are much more widely used in businesses and at home as we try to juggle our lives. And a habit that I got into, I don't know, 18 months ago now, I really will ideally kind of check my emails 3 times a day, so sort of first thing in the morning, at lunchtime, and at the end of the day. I'll do the same with checking my phone calls so that actually I can focus on what it is that I need to do during the day. It may be that actually you need to be much more in contact than that, but making that clear to everybody that I do work with, again, just kind of sets the boundaries and lets everybody know where we are. Because sometimes when we start to try and prioritise, and we'll come on to this in a little bit more detail later, but sometimes trying to prioritise what is a priority to you may not necessarily be a priority to me, and again, vice versa. So it's really important to kind of set our own boundaries sometimes to allow us to manage our time more effectively and allow us to be more productive instead of living in this busy state. And again, sort of looking at this last one, when I was working full-time, and again, I sometimes will still do ridiculously long hours. But coming back to what I said about looking at employees and I suppose the work that they do, looking at the outcomes rather than the time they spend in the office, I used to feel really guilty if I wasn't tied to my desk kind of 12 hours a day. You know, I can't possibly leave the office today because I've got so much to do, whereas some of that comes on to mindset, which again we'll come on to in a little while. So how do we manage our time if we don't know what's expected of us? So often the key to effective time management consists of a number of factors. So it's understanding the desired outcome. And again, if you understand that outcome and you understand what's expected, you can start to plan your time more effectively. You can then ensure that you allocate the right time to the task, the resources available to complete the task, have clear focus and remove distractions. So if, for example, we give somebody an hour to do something, it may not necessarily be as good as if we'd given them 4 hours to do something. But that balance, again, for our own time management and for that of our teams, actually, if I give you a day to do something, I know it's only going to take you an hour, how likely are you to come back to me in an hour and say, I've finished it, and then take on some more work? So it's a really, really clever balance there. And again, that's where the purpose-driven time management really, really comes into play. So why purpose-driven time management? And I love these 2 quotes here. For me, they sum it up brilliantly. So the first one here by Peter Drucker, until we can manage time, we can manage nothing else. And then the Zig Ziglar, people often complain about lack of time when it's the lack of direction that's the real problem. And again, if you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know what it is that you're trying to achieve, how can you plan effectively around that? So we come to our first pop quiz. Kat and Pia will be watching for the winner. So again, if you want to type in the chat box, and the first question is, what is time not? So the two questions that we'll go through today we'll have already covered in the content. So the first question, what is time not? If you want to, as I said, start typing your questions in the chat box, and Kat and Pia will be watching for the winner, which I think they'll announce shortly. But for now, just very, very quickly, I'm just going to grab a very quick sip of drink and I will hand over to Kat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, please type in your answer to the pop quiz. We do have a gift for the winner, the first person who answers correctly. And that is, you're able to receive the course that today's webinar is around. This is an abbreviated portion of the course that we have in its entirety, but we are offering this to you as a gift for the first person who's able to answer that pop quiz. Are you able to pop that last slide back just so that, just in case anyone, yeah, perfect. Okay. So again, the quiz, the pop quiz is, what is time not? And that was covered just a short while ago from Kelly. So if you happen to know that answer, pop that in. If you're the first person, you're going to win this course in its entirety. This is just a very abbreviated portion of the course that we have available. And we'll just pause just for a moment so people can go ahead and put in their answers. I don't have anyone so far that has the answer to that. Would you mind putting that just for a second in case they're still wanting to think about that? What is time not? All right, okay, so we have some answers here. And it looks like the first person who, is that correct, Kelly?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, okay, so Laura, you are the winner for the first pop quiz contest. Thank you so much. You are the winner. And if you can pop in your email address into the chat feature, I will send you information to be able to issue you your credentials to access that course. Congratulations, Laura, on that. And just before I turn it back over to Kelly, again, I do want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar and let you know that after the webinar, I'm going to be sending the 30% coupon off of the courses we have available from Chrysalis Consulting, and also recording for today's event. So if you were not able to, if you have a friend or a colleague who was not able to attend the event, or if you wish to listen again to the event, you'll be able to do so. We upload our webinars onto our YouTube channel, so we'll send that as well. And in addition to that, we also have, Kelly, if you want to go back to the green book, we also have an extra free gift for you today from Chrysalis, and this is called the Little Green Book. And it's something we'll include a link into the email that I send after the webinar later today. And this is a great book that Kelly can tell you a little bit more about, and you'll definitely want to take a look at that. So Kelly, I'll turn it back to you. And again, Laura, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Kat. Well done, Laura. So yeah, before I quickly move on, there's a Little Green Book is just an ebook that I, sort of ebook and short course that I launched a month or so ago. That is about 10 tips and strategies for living a happier and healthier life. So we'll, as I said, Kat will include that afterwards. So again, I hope you enjoy that and get a lot out of it. And again, they're just the coupon code that Kat mentioned. And then we'll move on to the elements of purpose-driven time management. So purpose-driven time management, we have 7 elements that this consists of. So we have our purpose, strategy, accountability, tools and resources, energy, mindset, and saying no. And we'll start to look at those in a little bit more detail now. So if you think back to the 2 quotes that we saw just before that, that sort of the quiz came up, you really first need a purpose. And for any of you that have sort of seen I suppose, Simon Sinek, start with why. But actually, it's a really, really important place to start with. And when you're clear on your purpose, it's easier to allocate time to achieving their goals. So 3 questions here that I find really, really useful are, what am I here to do? What are my core objectives? And what are my core outcomes? And what are my key objectives? And these can apply at home, at work, whether you're part of a team, whether you run your own business, whatever your position. What is it that you are here to do? What's your purpose within the role? And get really, really clear on that, because once you are clear on that, the rest of the steps follow really, really simply. And again, we touched on this, or I touched on this really throughout the first section of the course. So really, really clear to get, really important rather, to get clear on your purpose. So once you are clear on your purpose, it's time to then look at your strategy. And it's really about sort of time frames and how much time do you need to allocate to the tasks. So for example, if you're training for a marathon as a newbie runner, but you can only commit or create 30 minutes a week, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be ready to run that marathon over the a time frame of a couple of months, because you haven't committed enough time to it. You've not really, your strategy doesn't really fit in within those right time frames. So it's really important, as I said, once you've got your purpose, if your purpose is I want to run a marathon, your strategy then needs to back that up. Actually, how much time have you got? How much time can you physically create in order to be able to do that? And then you start to kind of look at whether it's achievable or not. And once you've got your strategy, diary management will now become much more easier. I find what really, really helps me is colour coding my diary. So I have kind of 5 colours that I work around. And actually, if it doesn't fit within those 5 colours, then I have to question whether it's part of my purpose and then feed that into my strategy. And I also have 2 qualifying questions that help me be able to say no and manage my time more effectively. And they are, will this help me achieve my purpose? And is it a priority right now? And those 2 questions I just find can help me map out a number of different things. So you've got your purpose, you've got your strategy, and then you'll be able to see who and what you are accountable to or for. So again, depending on your role, on your business, consider who it is that you're accountable to. So this could be your customers, your team, your manager, your stakeholders. And how much time do you need to allocate to each of these groups of people to allow you to meet your purpose, but also support them in whatever means is necessary for you to be able to support them. So we all have times when we're faced really with conflicting priorities, or everyone else thinks that their stuff is much more important than ours. And by getting clear again on our accountability, we can manage the demand, the expectations, and the time. So let's extend this slightly then and look at delegation. Again, a key point of running a business, running a team, supporting people and where it is that we need to go. But when you've identified who and what you're accountable to or for, you can start to look at the tasks and actions that need to be carried out by you and those that you can delegate to others. Many, however, struggle with delegation versus empowerment, and this can cause problems for the people that we delegate to. And by that, we'll come on to it in a moment, but actually if we're delegating the wrong thing to the wrong people and increasing their workload, which then leaves them feeling busy all the time, they don't know where to start, and they're not able to meet their goals or objectives, actually we have a responsibility for them for that. So to extend on this slightly, we look at kind of delegation versus empowerment. And the slide here shows some of the differences. So instead of kind of here's what I want you to do in the delegating section here, the empowerment part is what do you need from me? And I'll leave you for just a couple of moments to kind of read through those yourselves. I won't go through them one by one. And again, I'm just conscious of time. I want us to be able to finish within the hour. But it really is. Delegating in effect is kind of giving, I suppose, giving somebody something to do, taking it off our hands, or in some cases kind of growing and helping other people. The empowering part of that, what can I then do to help you with that as you go forward? And just the final slide on this is kind of when to delegate and when not to delegate. And these are just some key pointers on how to make delegation effective. So one of the top ones here, do delegate when there is a lot of work to manage, but don't delegate your own hot potatoes. So for example, tasks that are time sensitive, an emergency and or confidential. So again, just a couple of seconds just to have a look at that, and maybe just consider which side of that, you kind of in the green part or the red part when it comes to giving other tasks to other people. And then really, once you've done that delegation, are they meeting the timeframes that you've set out for them? And if no, is that because you've delegated instead of empowered? And is that maybe because you've been delegating the wrong thing, leaving you then flustered and maybe having to pick things up at the last moment? So we've quickly kind of skimmed over our purpose, our strategy, our accountability. So let's now move on to the tools and resources. And tools and resources are not just physical things. So, if you've got, I don't know, a project to do, you maybe need a certain amount of software, you need your laptop, whatever, kind of working equipment. But actually, when you think about tools and resources, this may also include any previous knowledge or current knowledge, your experience, any people that you have around you. It can also be money and time. So to create your purpose, or to achieve your purpose and manage your time more effectively, what's your purpose? What is your strategy for achieving that? Who are you accountable to? And then what tools and resources do you help really to deliver that strategy and help you achieve your purpose? We then move on to mindset, which is key really. And without being in the right mindset, you can end up back in bright, shiny object syndrome. So there's some questions here that kind of, do you procrastinate? Are you a constant procrastinator? Do you put things off until the last minute? Do you find yourself scouring the internet or wasting time on social media, making endless cups of coffee when you should be focusing on what it is that you need to do? And a big question for me here is, where do you get in your own way? So when it comes to time management, again, are you one of these people that's constantly busy instead of being productive? But are you constantly busy because you're not delegating properly, you're not clear on your vision, or because you sat in that wrong mindset? I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, and that's running around in your head all of the time, rather than, right, what is it that I can achieve today? What do I need to go and have a conversation with somebody with to say, either I can't meet that or can I have a bit more time off? Are you constantly in I'm busy mode rather than looking at actually what it is that I can achieve? Because sometimes when we do go into that procrastination mode, we physically cannot see the wood for the trees, and we're constantly fighting against ourselves, and there's this kind of element of procrastination. Whereas if we allow ourselves sometimes just 10 minutes to write everything down or have a look and really kind of map out what it is that we need to do, sometimes just starting the task, because once you've started the task, you realise it's only taken you half an hour when you thought, because you were in that feeling of overwhelm, it was going to take you all day, and you really didn't know where to start with it. So getting yourself in the right mindset is really, really important. And when it comes to your mindset, and you can identify where that is causing you problems, the next step of that really is identifying what you can do to counteract that. So if you're constantly in a negative, busy mode, what can you do to get yourself into a positive, productive mode? So some questions for thought there. And then we move on to energy. So again, you're clear on your purpose, your strategy, you understand your areas of accountability, the tools and resources that you have available to help you succeed, and you've considered your mindset. So next is to tackle your energy. And a quick pointer here, our brains lose focus a lot of the time after around 90 minutes or so. And I suppose that's one reason really why the Pomero technique, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but kind of the tomato timer that you can kind of set for sort of race against the clock really, but for no more than 90 minutes. Really, really useful technique, because as I said, sort of our brains just start to lose focus after that point. But I've got on the screen here about energy angels and energy vampires. And again, you know, sort of people can start to wince in their seats when I sort of start to look at this. But your energy angels are literally anything that gives you energy. And the vampires are the reverse of that, really. So anything that drains you of energy. And your angels and your vampires can be tasks, they can be people, meetings, activities, foods, drinks, exercises, films even, films and TV, music, you know, anything where you kind of feel your energy shifting. And on average, you need a ratio of 3 angels to every 1 vampire. And again, I know when I would sit in some all-day board meetings as an HR director, you'd really start to flag. Sometimes the energy in the room, you could just feel it shifting. And you know, you get to the point where you think, I physically cannot sit here anymore. Now, it may have started off really well. You may be in the room with the right people, but actually, you know, the tasks are, or some of the questioning, some of the conversations that are taking place, and it could be those conversations that are starting to drain you of energy. So be really, really aware of that. If you know you've got to have a really difficult meeting with an employee, or you're going into a difficult conversation with a client, try and map out some time if you can in your diaries. If you know that call or that meeting is going to take an hour, and it's, you know, going to be the worst hour of your week, then try and kind of have, you know, a couple of hours afterwards where you can be with your team members or involved in tasks or activities that really, really lift your energy afterwards, because energy is key again to time management. If we're feeling in a place where we're really low and we're starting to feel really, really lethargic, it's unlikely that we're going to give something our best, but it's also unlikely that we're going to achieve it within the time given, because again, we go into that mindset mode of procrastination and putting things off until the last minute because we really just haven't got the energy to drive us forwards. So really, really consider that. And if you can, identify who are your angels or what are your angels and where are your drainers. And again, try and manage your time accordingly to make sure that you can give your best, but also that you're kind of getting the best out of others. Really, really important. And then we move on to saying no. So again, you've got your purpose, your strategy, your accountability, tools and resources, mindset and energy. And for some people, it's the saying no that they find the most challenging part. So again, often when we're looking at time management, we can have the perfect schedule, the most beautifully colour-coded diary in the world. But sometimes if we can't say no, it doesn't allow us to meet our purpose or fit in with our strategy. Even sometimes the best thought out plans can go out the window. Now, as we said, you know, depending on other people's workload and who and what you're accountable for, there are always going to be things that come up at the last minute. And if it falls within your remit, be realistic about what you can say yes to. But again, what I found through this, and I've been delivering this program now for you know, a significant amount of time, but actually by saying no to a number of things, you actually create then more time for the right yeses to come in. And if the yeses are aligned with your purpose and your strategy, again, you're more likely to be able to manage your time effectively and achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve. And on the next slide here, you may have seen this before, just kind of pull this one off the internet, but again, these 11 steps here, just really, really useful. I'm not always necessarily sure about point 4, because actually the medium that you're most comfortable with may then spark a massive complaint from somebody else. So I add a caveat to that is, you know, use the medium that you're most comfortable with and that is most appropriate for your audience. But you know, these 11 steps I've worked through with a number of people on a number of different occasions, and they've all found them really, really useful. What a lot of people find though when they go into the kind of say no mode is that guilt automatically sets in, and because they feel guilty about saying no, their immediate response is, I have to say yes to this. And a lot of the coaching clients that I work with is because they just physically cannot say no, and they find themselves saying yes and yes and yes more often. And again, if this has happened to you before, sometimes the more you say yes, the more the expectation is that you will say yes. And then when you get to the point that you try and say no to people, that's where you start to, you know, you've always done this before, this is unfair, this is the wrong way to take it. So be really cautious there. But this is, again, they're all kind of hugely important elements. But if you can say no, you create much more room for the yeses. So we're now going to quickly move on to our second pop quiz. And same as before, if you would like to type your answers in the comments box on the right-hand side. And the second question is, as we move forward, what 2 things do you need to be aware of when it comes to your energy? So what 2 things do you need to be aware of when it comes to your energy? And I'll just take another very quick sip of drink and I'll hand over to Kat.
Alrighty, perfect. Perfect. We already have a repeat. Laura, you are on spot today, so you must have a lot of caffeine in your system. Angels and vampires. So we have several other people that have that same answer. So well done to Teresa and also to Rachel. But Laura, you were the first one with that answer. So you're a double winner today. Now, with that said, I will again send you the links to courses that you're able to redeem, and also I'm going to go ahead and also issue the second person that had the correct answer, just so we have a second person. And Rachel, you were the second person to also reply with the correct answer. Congratulations, Rachel, as well. So Rachel, if you can please send me your email via chat. And Laura and Rachel, congratulations. You are both the winners of the second contest. Well done. And while Kelly is taking a sip of her tea, I just wanted to let everyone know that Coggno has a very, very simplified, very robust training platform, aka to everyone at this webinar at no cost. Coggno does not charge for the LMS system. Some of the many features of the training platform include the ability so that you can upload your own internal training documents, processes and procedures. You're then able to add groups and then add your learners or your employees to the groups. And then you can distribute the training that you've uploaded to your learners. You can then go back and you can track the training progress from your employees. You can run reports. You can view certificates of completion. It's a very simplified but very robust learning management system. So again, this is available to everyone at no cost. So please, if you're interested in more information about the Coggno training platform, aka LMS, please just send me your email address right here in the chat feature. I'll send you information about that. I'll get you set up, and you'll be good to go. And we can have a walkthrough call so I can show you all the features and functions. So Kelly, hopefully you've had an opportunity to have a sip of tea, and I'll turn it back to you.
I have, thank you. And it's just started hailing again. I've got 3 roof lights right above my head, so apologies if the noise gets a little bit too loud. It's been hailing here for most of the day, but thank you for that. So, we've covered, that's the kind of 7 elements covered, and I think just looking at time, because I'm conscious of questions, it's unlikely that we're going to have time to go through the exercises, so I'll just kind of sum here and then we'll go over to questions. But the exercises you will all find in the course, and a couple of the questions I've already highlighted throughout as we go through, so if you do get the opportunity to re-watch the recording, then please do so and start to answer those questions, most importantly about your purpose. So I suppose just some kind of tips and pointers here. So we covered just a few seconds ago really about allocating a maximum of 90 minutes to any task of activity, because actually we do start to lose our energy and focus after this point, and I do really, really stress that. Whether it's, you know, sort of two minutes, even 5 minutes away from your computer, quick walk around the office, make yourself a coffee, make yourself a drink, but if you can, try and sort of chunk your diary up into 90-minute blocks, and you really will see an instant shift in energy and also your productivity really. So also then schedule time in your diary for your priorities, accountabilities and responsibilities. So again, you know, if you are running your own business, how much time do you genuinely need to spend with your, you know, with your customers, with your team members? If you are employed, then how much time is it that you need to be spending with your team? How much time do you need to be spending with your managers? Really, really get that mapped out in your diary, even if it's not kind of on a day-to-day, but actually I need to be spending 15 hours a week with all of my customers, for example, then you need to make sure that you allow for that in there. Do allow time for interruptions. They do all come up, whether it's a phone call, whether it's somebody needing something from you urgently, whether it's somebody that needs to have a bit of a chat for you. So do try and allow time for interruptions. If your diary is mapped out from first thing in the morning until last thing at night, and then somebody comes up and literally just needs 10 minutes of your time, that's where you're likely to get flustered, or you're just kind of putting too much pressure on yourself as well. So really try and allow time for those interruptions. If you can, use the start of the day for the difficult or onerous tasks so they are out the way. So I have a real bugbear when it comes to spreadsheets. I absolutely loathe them. So if I do those at the start of the day, I'm then not putting off and procrastinating everything else that I need to do. Ask yourself, and again, these are kind of my two qualifying questions, and you may have your own qualifying questions that you thought of when I started to talk about this, but my two are, will this help me achieve my purpose, and is this a priority right now? And if the answer is no or maybe to any of those, then I just don't focus on them. I keep focused on what it is that I need to do. There's a spelling here, I told you I was no good at detail, but use no more than 5 headings to prioritise your day. So where I said I colour code that diary, try and stick to a maximum of 5, because again, any more than that and you'll start to get a bit lost. And then the final point on here is delegate or empower as much as you can to keep on track. So as I said, we'll skip quickly over the exercises, but I always end, whether it's a training course, a session or a webinar, I always end with asking a commitment so that you can share, you can really embed the learning. And by writing this down, you actually send a signal to your brain that tells you that something needs to change. Even if it's not the exact answer that you've put on here, you're sending a signal to say that something needs to change. So I suppose my commitment, what I'd ask you to make a commitment to yourself, or share it in the chat function here. What 3 things could you implement within the next 24 hours to make a difference to your time management? So what 3 things could you implement within the next 24 hours to make a difference to your time management? As I said, either write those down. If you want to share them, then again, feel free to put those in the chat, and I'll leave that slide up there just for a couple of moments. And then we'll move on to questions, if that's okay. So any thoughts, any comments, or any questions? I think we've got a few minutes left before we kind of wrap up. So Kat, I don't know if anything is coming through to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Kelly. So if anyone has any questions that they wanted to ask Kelly before the end of the webinar today, please feel free to put the questions into the chat feature so Kelly can address those at this time. And just let me review real quickly. Tammy, thank you for your interest. I will get you information about the training platform, the LMS. Again, if anyone else would like information about the no-cost training platform, please do let me know via chat, and I will get you that information as well. Kelly, I do have a question that has come through. The first question that I have here is, what is the most effective way to manage my diary?
Most effective way to manage your diary. So again, I think I would say start with the difficult tasks. As I said, chunk it into 90-minute blocks wherever possible. Again, depending on the work that you do, that may not necessarily always be the case. Use your colour coding, and if you can, as I think I touched on at the beginning, if you can allocate set times throughout the day to respond or deal with emails and telephone calls, because again, sometimes you can be really head down with something, you see the email pop up at the bottom of your screen, and 2.5 hours later you're still dealing with emails because they've just kept flooding in and flooding in. So I think if you can allocate that time, but again, make sure that you explain that to those people that you work with. These are the 3 times or 5 times that I check my emails. And again, it's kind of a part of that allowing for interruptions, really. But the difficult things or the onerous things first thing, colour code wherever you can, just so you've got a real sense of where you are. Allow for interruptions, and if you can, map out very clearly when you will respond to emails and calls.
All right, brilliant. Okay. Just looking through, I have another question that's come through. I work as, let's see, let me see how this works. I work as part of a big team, and then don't really understand my purpose or my strategy. What would you suggest I do?
So I think the first thing is, I suppose, probably having a chat with your manager, but also maybe going back to your, to your interview and to your job description or role profile. So actually, what's the job that you were employed to do, and what kind of outcomes was it that you need to achieve? So I'd start with sort of the role profile and the job description. I'd then have a chat with your manager, and if there are then other members within the team kind of that are feeling the same way, I'd just have a chat with them. How can you be working together more and supporting each other more, so that you've got I suppose, your individual purpose, but maybe then a collective team purpose, so that you all know what you're doing and can, support as and when you need to make sure that you deliver everything that you need to be delivering.
That's brilliant. That's that's perfect. I love that answer. Okay, I have one more question here in queue. So if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and pop them in. We have just about 2 minutes left before the webinar ends. This other question I have looks very relevant, actually, probably to a lot of people. It says, I'm not able to say no to things as I worry about upsetting people, but then I find I'm overwhelmed with work. What is the alternative?
Yeah, again, I suppose I would always start by practicing with saying no. As I said, a lot of people do find that very difficult. So I think, again, if you're saying yes to something, what's that stopping you from achieving? And I think that being open, I've got, a variety of different things, but I kind of label them as hot, actually, which are kind of hot conversations and hot leadership, which is about being honest, open, and transparent. And I think the more that we start to be more open, honest, and transparent with people, and we start to, have those difficult conversations, put ourselves out of the comfort zone, because we can all sit and say yes to everybody, and then drive ourselves into a really stressful situation, or start to make ourselves ill because we're not doing everything that we need to be doing. And I think just having those honest, open, and transparent conversations with people kind of puts our cards on the table, really, but also understands where the other people are coming from.
Okay, brilliant, wonderful. Okay, those are all the questions that I have in the queue at this point. So if anyone happens to think of any other questions after the webinar that you wanted to present to Kelly, feel free to email that to either Pia or myself, and we'll send those over to Kelly, and she'll be able to address those. Kelly, is there anything you wanted to say before we end the webinar today?
I think just, huge thank you to both yourself and Pia and really the rest of the Coggno team, I suppose, for arranging this and inviting me to speak today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I do hope, to those of you that have listened, you've been able to take something useful out of it. And again, just remember there's kind of 3 things that you can change to make sure that you really do get the value out of the session. But thank you all very, very much for your time and for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck.
Okay, excellent. Well, I do want to again congratulate Laura and Rachel on our contest winners for this webinar. Congratulations. And Kelly, thank you so much. I really, really value the information you provided today. It was very informative. And again, for everyone who attended, thank you. I do hope that you'll visit us at the next Coggno webinar event. And please be on the lookout for the email that we will be sending today. Again, we're going to be providing a 30% discount on any of the courses from Chrysalis Consulting, and also the link to the little green book, the eBook that's available to you. And again, if there's anything that you need as far as course recommendations, or if you'd like to become a Coggno partner, or if you would like information about obtaining the no-cost LMS system, the Coggno training platform, let us know. Email either myself or Pia, and we can get you set up with that. So again, thank you all so much. Hope to see you again at a future webinar event. Have a great day.